like to call to order the Jacksonville Planning Advisory Board regular meeting for April the 12th, 2021. We will stand and be led by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Robert Sandy, followed by the invocation by Mr. Steve Forney.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this great day we've had today, and please give us more. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to represent the citizens of Jacksonville in doing our civic duties here. Give us both the knowledge and the wisdom to do which is right. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Okay, well, thank you for joining us tonight. Be a little bit different. Our Councilman Bob Warden is at home right now and was not able to make tonight's meeting, but he is up on the live screen, there. So there'll be a little bit of a delay. You may have noticed that, those of us watching G10 on our TV, there's a little bit as he was actually participating in the pledge, which I truly appreciate. So if you got that little vibration, a little vibrato at home, watching this live, and that's where it all came from. So anyway, so it has nothing to do with our sound crew here, but just a little bit of a delay. So, but thank you for joining us. Right now, I will ask for the approval for the agenda for this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Homer.
I second.
And second by Mr. Steve. Those in favor, raise your hand. Make sure you raise it high so they can keep count, as directed by Mr. Ryan King here. So great, thank you. All right, I actually participated in that one myself. So anyway, last month's meeting was on March the 8th, and we have a review and approval of those minutes. And if there's any corrections, please let me know. Otherwise, I will ask for a motion to approve.
One minor correction.
What's that?
I was present, but it's not listed.
Yes, you were here. I know. You were to my left at that meeting, so we'll make sure we make that correction.
Mr. Chair.
Other than that, I move that the minutes be approved with the addition of.
Second that.
So we have approval, motion and a second. Those in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you very much. All right. So, Bob, it's your turn. City Council update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, our last meeting on March 16th, we approved the chicken problem addition to the UDO, and we also approved the transfer stations change to the UDO. And then at our next meeting on April 20th, we're going to have a public hearing on your agenda item number 1, which has to do with the allowing governmental facilities in residential zones, which I feel sure you're probably going to approve. So that's all I had, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to participate.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you could join us, even if it is remote. So thank you so much. All right. So I see there is no old business. We will go ahead and move on into the new business for this evening. And the first item up is the Unified UDO text amendment with government facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Advisory Board. Item number 1 is a staff prepared text amendment. We are proposing to amend the UDO's table of permitted uses. This proposed change is for the governmental facilities category, specifically the uses of governmental offices and government maintenance or distribution facilities to be a special use permit in all districts currently not permitted at all. This would give this board and the city council, if this amendment is approved, it would give you that ability to review uses of property within residential zones, I believe it was the DTR and the residential multifamily high density, the kind of ones that stand out sometimes. Give this board and the city council the ability to review them as those projects would come in. For example, just to point out why this change is coming forward, if you look at some of the departments in the city, community engagement, Parks and Rec, they may want to have a satellite office, not necessarily in a dense neighborhood, maybe a temporary facility to service the community, and currently they can't. There's no avenue. It's not permitted. It's not by special use. And so staff is proposing to change the ordinance to give us, not only the city, it would be any government, the ability to look at putting a use to service a more tightly knit community. Staff is recommending approval of this amendment with policy 5.6 of the Campbell Land Use Plan supporting it, and that this amendment is reasonable and is in the public interest. And I'll be happy to address any questions the board may have.
Other examples?
So
besides
if you
Rex
recall,
Department?
several months ago, under the use of, actually, I say several months, the last year's gone by so oddly and quickly and just so much going on, but the board may remember making a recommendation on the 820 Barn Street for the Parks and Rec Department to use as a community center. We brought that in as a community center use. However, our community engagement department, their purpose has changed over the years, and they look at targeted certain neighborhoods. They may want to put an office that's in close proximity to communities that not everyone has the ability to drive to City Hall to get that assistance they may need, or talk to someone who can offer some help. Or since the Parks and Rec Department will not be using the 820 Barn Street, there is some potential for other governmental use there. So that you could definitely potentially be seeing that in the near future. So those would be two examples of uses. We looked at the post office use in residential, but have chose not to amend it. We'll tackle those if those come up, but I don't see us getting new post office anytime soon.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy, just to be, all this does is allow them as a special use permit?
Yes, sir. It is not permitted outright. This board would have the ability to review it, consider it, recommend conditions, recommend approval or denial of a specific use or location.
So as it is now, don't even bother asking.
Correct.
But if this passes, then you'll have at
Correct.
least an avenue to bring forward and have public hearings and even amendments to how the property's
Correct.
used.
Correct. And this is the same thing that goes currently for fire and EMS. There are currently a special use in the same zones. So that is something staff believes is like in nature in terms of your traffic and stuff. I would think more often your fire departments and EMS may have more traffic than a small governmental facility, the office. And that term can be sound daunting, governmental facility. But these are, I don't foresee large complexes within our neighborhoods. But this is the ability to use maybe surplus buildings that the city owns or provide some niche services.
Have any other questions from the board? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
You just need a motion to approve, correct? I move to approve the UDO text amendment found in attachment A.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Homer. A second. Second, all right. Very good. All right, Mr. Al, good. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, so it's all approved. Very good. Thanks. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I'm going to hang out.
All right, you're gonna hang out, okay, we'll let you hang out a little bit more. So, second item is a discussion on a map amendment, Preston Road, North Marine Boulevard, and East Thomas Street.
So let me be very general on this because we'll dive into it more next month.
Okay,
But I wanted to update the board, give you the opportunity to ask some early questions. But for some time now, we've been looking at this area, the Preston Road, that's a parallel to Onslow Drive. The areas from the city's pump station next door to Quartz Plus, all the way to Belfort Road, North Marine Boulevard in that area. As a lot of you, everyone should remember that the railroad went through that corridor, and the city took ownership of that abandoned corridor. And as with many cities along the railroads, the properties were all zoned industrial. So right now, starting at Cheney Creek all the way to Belfort Road is all industrial zoning with a little bit of mix up or mash up of some commercial on that side of 17. You'll see that's where the multi-use path goes. On the Preston Road area and then a little track along Beecham Lane to the north are all zoned neighborhood commercial. From what staff has gathered, I would say the late 80s or 90s, the council at the time, there was a rezoning to rezone that to commercial neighborhood business, which allowed single family at that time. And it offered the area as a transitional zone as you went from the commercial along Onslow Drive, as it fed over into the Preston Road and older housing developments in that area. But if you look at the trends now, the transition never happened. There was never an influx of small commercial development. It's remained residential. And this actually got pushed fast forward with an application to rezone one of the parcels there because someone is trying to sell their home. And they cannot close on it because the bank won't offer funding to close on a home that can't be rebuilt. Because now, since 2014, in the neighborhood commercial, that's the blue zoning, single family is not permitted. So if that house was to be damaged beyond 50% of its value, it couldn't be rebuilt. So we took that as our kind of the kick in the pants to go ahead and move forward with something that we have been looking at. And so you'll see that next month, and we'll be proposing from the Chevron and McDonald's that's at the corner of Onslow and 17 this way. We'll be proposing to change that to corridor commercial. And properties this way, all to industrial, and this would include the new multimodal center, the city's department, or the city's transportation department's new facility, as well as the uses there at the corner of Belfort, which includes moving and storage, that Longley Supply, and then the properties along Preston Road and the rear of this site to RMF LD, like the adjacent residential surrounding, and the property directly fronting Beecham to corridor commercial. We've been working with that property owner due to some code issues, and this rezoning could possibly rectify that. And we're also considering this area. We need to investigate a little bit more. There is a mixed use of some commercial operation going on there as well as the residential. But the one thing we've been adamant to do is to not create any new nonconformities. And with what we will be bringing forward to you in May, I believe we have achieved that or will achieve that. So I just wanted to kind of make you aware of that because you may start seeing some signs go up in the area. Questions may be asked, notifications will start going out. Anytime you touch this many properties with the rezoning, it will raise some questions. But we're just trying to make the zoning in this area more consistent with the developing trends that we're seeing.
Cool, thanks.
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any idea how those blue areas got stuck right in the middle like that without
Right
being
here.
zoned when the other properties?
Gathered, it was a popular planning in the 90s and so was to create your transitional zones. You'd have heavy commercial on one side, light commercial then you move into maybe more dense residential, and then you get into your bigger residential lots. And with these backing up to the commercial properties on Onslow, it makes sense. But it's just never happened. I mean, and the homes have been there. They've been there for years. And staff, we don't see them going anywhere. And right now, they're in kind of a no man's land in that if something were to happen, someone couldn't protect their investment because the zoning doesn't allow it.
So if the home burns, say, for example, and they wanted to rebuild, they could not because of
Yes, sir.
the way it's currently
It's
zoned?
very similar. We had a rezoning early last year on New Bern Highway, just as you get right to the edge of the city's jurisdiction. There was 3 properties there that were zoned commercial, and they were in a similar situation.
I'll point out that while we strive to not create nonconformities, we've got nonconforming situations now. We can't promise that there won't be any nonconforming situations when this changes, but we feel like, along Preston, they're all single-family. Neighborhood commercial is not really what the land use has been and will be in the future, at least not in the near future. So it is creating problems for people. So it won't be perfect, but that's what we strive to do as far as not create new nonconformities.
And because this question's come up on another project that we're looking at, the split zoning, more or less, where you have the strips of corridor commercial along 17, where the railroad corridor was. What if the use is permitted industrial, but it's not permitted in corridor commercial? The question, can they use the commercial zoning to get to their allowed industrial use? So this would clear up any question there if we were to able to blanket rezone that to corridor commercial and then these properties to the industrial. Then there's no question of if it's permitted in one district, but in order to get to it, it's a different zoning district in the back.
In that area where he just pointed to, where Longley is at Bell Fork and 17,
Right here.
would that not create a nonconformity there?
No, thankfully, building supply is a permitted use in industrial.
Gotcha.
And then you have there's a motorcycle shop and then the warehouse and moving storage area, business.
Jeremy, what are you thinking about that blue area off of Preston Road that is near Spring Street?
The home of the Board of Realtors, we will be reaching out to them, talking with the city manager and looking at it. The ideal proposed zoning is office and institutional. But we would like to talk to the Board of Realtors, who are the owner of record, and see if that is something they would be amenable to. Would they support it? Would they like to see it? Because there are 2 additional units in there that they rent out. And it would be a downgrade, so to speak, in terms of allowable uses to go from neighborhood commercial to office and institutional. But we'll see. We've looked at O&I or perhaps leaving it as is. The beauty of a rezoning this large is if it comes down to it, if recommended to city council for approval, we can move an area out if it doesn't create a spot zoning situation. But I don't foresee that happening.
Jeremy, can I presume that the residents along Preston Road came to the?
We have one property owner. They are not a residence. They lived here several years ago via military and have since moved home, but they kept ownership. They were actually 2 weeks from closing, selling the home, and realtor made the smart call to the city planning office and said, hey, we noticed this is zoned neighborhood commercial. Is this an issue? Presented a zoning letter to them saying, yes, it's an issue if you want to rebuild, if you have damage. The owners live in New Jersey. They've called, and in fact, I spoke to them prior to this meeting. I told them that we're moving forward with their rezoning, but it's going to be part of a greater area. Because there may be, not that I think it would be not approved to rezone just one parcel there. It just doesn't make sense. We try to be broader in our rezonings. If we have the opportunity to look at the area, I think we should. We have that responsibility as planners to look at the greater area. I don't foresee any of the property owners there for the residential lots. We still have to do a little bit more scrutiny on those closer to 17, the vacant tracts. There's 3 or 4 here that are vacant, but they're on and off, right or wrong, used commercially sometimes. So you may look to bring that even to a corridor commercial, like the same depth that goes along 17 there. I had hoped to actually bring this to you tonight, but it is a little bit more daunting to make sure that what we're proposing is right for this area and consistent with what the city wants to see and what's right for the community.
You told us that the bottom 2 or 3 plot units down in the blue off Preston Road, that they're vacant?
Well, there's some asphalt. They've been used when the bus station was operating out of there. There was vehicles there when the Brad's Bodega was operating there. Some overflow parking, I'm sure, was going on.
And even before that.
Yes. there's
Towing
been-
wrecker service, using it to park vehicles. I mean, it's,
So away from those 3, are all the other units, are all the other
They're all
uses down
houses.
there houses?
houses or were at one time, maybe from lack of upkeep, they've been torn down. But the residential uses have been the historical use.
so we've got another similar situation that we'll eventually work on. This is similar to the Western Boulevard rezoning that we did, a year or 2 ago, where we got rid of the industrial along Western. Croatan Court, and I think the other one may be Pisgah Court off of Onsville Drive, had a call this past week about the same situation. It's zone quarter commercial. They got townhouse units. It's non-conforming. So, that's another area where really, because prior to 2014, multifamily townhouses were allowed in that district, they were constructed. Now they're non-conforming. So, we need to look at an RMF, HD, or LD zoning classification, because those, it's not what's there and it's not what's going to be there for a while. And that's just where UDO land use table changed and it didn't follow that with it. And we didn't want it to, but now we've got to come back in and fix the areas, as they come up. The other one on Beecham Lane, another situation where, the front part's been used for commercial, the back half has had a single-family dwelling on it for years, over 40 or 50 years now. And, same situation where, by taking the back to residential, the house that's been there for years can remain and not have any issues with that. So it's just, we'll bring others before you, as Jeremy stated, as we go, as we've done before. It's just a matter of going through and kind of fine tuning it from this point until next month, just fine tuning exactly where that line is. But most of what you see here, the plan's kind of in place. We just got to tweak a few things possibly.
We are looking at the New Bern Highway corridor from Western to Wolf Swamp Road. That's another mesh of industrial and commercial tracks, is very inconsistent. Trying to think
Well,
of-
even Western to Piney Green Road, just along that old railroad corridor, does it belong industrial, does it belong commercial? What's the land uses there? And then the Croatan Court scenario, we're gonna have some of those to where, we've got to kind of look at making some adjustments. And sometimes it takes somebody calling, whether it be an appraisal or a bank or whoever, a zoning verification letter that we get a lot of, to where it's kind of realized, and then it's a matter of, well, we put it on the list for staff initiated, or does somebody actually make application? This one, we've been working on, and we had an actual application come in about 2 weeks ago, and we said, well, we're working on it anyhow, so, we'll add your application to our staff initiated request, just to kind of make it known that it's not just us, there's this parcel's part of it, and that's what they're requesting as well.
Sounds good. Sounds like got a good plan.
And we'll have, like I said, I'll split it up into three sections as I present it to you next month. We'll have what was originally going to just be this area, the Preston Road area. But as we continue to see development here and the city's property and more development in this area, it made sense to bring it all at one, but I'll present it to you in three maps all together as one recommendation. Pardon my scribbling. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. So we'll look forward to that. So, all right, so we need, we're done with our business, so we will move on into the reports.
Great seeing everybody tonight. Thank you for your commitment to this board. Councilman Logan Sosa was sworn in at the council meeting last week, so we will be looking forward to having the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee liaison appoint a new member to the planning board from that WASAC. So we'll be one down until that position is filled by the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee.
Okay. That is,
That's all that I have.
that's all you have. Okay. Well, I have nothing else, and so I guess we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you for being with us tonight.